Hello everybody. So, the day has come, the day of reckoning, the day of Omnath, the Rage Locus, El Locus of El Rage. He's a super badass commander. Bear with me, my voice is not the greatest. Got some allergies with a combination of what I think is a slight cold from my son, so I'm a little stuffed up. So, bear with me. Omnath, Locus of Murder. Basically, in a nutshell, he puts you out a potential 8 damage every time you drop a land. Landfall. Put a 5/5 into play. Whenever an elemental dies, he or another, you can lightning bolt 3 damage to somebody's face or somebody's creature's face. You get to choose. Either way, it rewards you for basically doing nothing. It rewards you for playing the game. Play magic. Play a land. Deal damage. Every land is 8 damage possibly. So that shit stacks up fast. Getting into the land base, I run 40 lands. I run a lot of lands in here because I wanted to model this deck after Azusa, Lost But Seeking. So, Azusa decks run a lot of lands. They run like, I don't know, I've seen decks that run like 43, I've seen decks that run 55 lands. It's ridiculous. But you want to make sure you hit those land drops with her. And I wanted to make sure I have a ton of land drops as well. So I went with 40. I run a lot of basics. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 forests. Which it's important to have a lot of basics in here because I have a ton. Now when I say a ton, I mean a metric fuckload of land fetching doodads to get me those things. So I need it. I need all of it. I had to have a lot of basics because of that. I run, I think, 7 mountains. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mountains. Those are my basics. So 17 basics. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot. Now, getting into the non-basics that tap for either or, I wanted to make sure I had a lot that have the subtypes of forest or mountain for my fetching means. So Stomping Ground and Cinderglade are perfect for that. Cinderglade's the new stuff out of Battle for Zendikar. Perfect. It's a forest and a mountain. I also have the amount of basics to make that very irrelevant, the coming into play tapped nonsense. Firelit Thicket, Rootbound Crag, Command Tower, pretty stably. Now, our fetch lands. My bad, sorry, I hit the camera. Our fetch lands, I do run, I think about 9 fetch lands. These are crucial. I know a lot of people aren't keen on losing life for a card, like a land, but these are crucial. Each one of these fetch lands puts out an easy 10 damage, if not an easy 16 damage for me. These lands kill people, okay? Playing lands kills people with Omnath. That's what you want to do. So, more landfall triggers the better. Wooded Foothills, Windswept Heath, and Bloodstained Mire allow me to get out those lands like Cinderglade and Wooded Foothills if I need to. Bloodstained Mire's not so strong, but you know what? It works. It pulls my mountains out, and that's what I want. I want more landfall triggers. Fertile Thicket. Fertile Thicket is another one of those new cards, and it ensures, well, helps to ensure that I'm top decking more lands. Sometimes that can be bad when I don't really want to draw lands. You know what? I want to play lands, so it has yet to really hurt me in any way, shape, or form. The more lands I get, the more damage I can put on the table, and that's what Omnath is all about. More damage. Evolving Wilds, I mean, gets me 2 landfall triggers. Terramorphic Expanse gets me 2 landfall triggers. Thawing Glaciers, this is a badass old card from Alliances. You pay 1, tap it, search library for a basic, put it into play tapped. At end of turn, you return Thawing Glaciers to your hand. I have a way to manipulate this to where I can use this multiple times in a turn. The most I've ever used in a turn, which was like 1 or 2 games, I think 1 game I used it multiple times a turn, I used it 4 times in a turn. 4 landfall triggers from a land alone in 1 turn. Super badass, and it was pretty much overkill at that point, but it was super funny, like tutoring out, using a land to tutor out more lands directly into play. But I will point that out when I get to that, so I'm gonna set that one aside for now. On Glaciers. Myriad Landscape. More fetching. It's a land that pulls me 2. That's a land that gets me a total of 15 damage on board. Comes into play, I get an elemental from Omnath. I use it, I get 2 more 5/5 elementals. Blighted Woodland, same thing. This is an explosive vegetation on a land. That's amazing, especially in a deck that you want to hit them landfall triggers. This is another thing that gets me 15 damage minimum on board, if not more. Now we're getting into a little bit of land destruction stuff. Now, I'm not keen on land destruction, but I want to be prepared for any situation. Now, I had to do a lot of networking with my folks in Iowa and elsewhere to curve out the land base perfectly. Carve it out just perfectly. Ghost Quarter fits numerous slots. I can play it, it doesn't slow me down, doesn't come into play tapped. I can hit somebody's Urborg, somebody's Cabal Coffers, somebody's whatever. Their Arcane Lighthouse, get rid of it. And I can also hit my own lands to get myself another landfall trigger if I really need to get that going. So it's a failsafe. It's really awesome. I frequently actually hit my own lands just to get more landfall triggers. I also run Titania, the Priest of Argoth, or whatever she is, the legendary creature that came out of the 2014 Commander decks. So every time a land goes to my graveyard, I get a 5/3 elemental. So it's pretty wicked. It's just such synergy. It's a total powerhouse. Strip Mine. Wastes a land, goes to the graveyard. Mirren the Moaning Well. This is a sack outlet land that I don't have a lot of ways to gain life. But it gets me a lightning bolt trigger, sacking an elemental, and gaining 5 life. So it's fit that bill quite well. It saved me in 1 or 2 games all by itself with that life gain. Homeward Path. Now it's inevitable that in Omnath, running such a menacing general, if people have seen it before, they're going to do what they can to get him out of there or steal it. I've had this happen multiple times, and every time, boom, Homeward Path has just saved my bacon. Whenever people try to steal Omnath, get them back. Ancient Tomb. It's a land that really speeds your ass up. It does deal 2 damage to you over time, but you know what? This means Omnath is coming out 2 turns faster. That's bad for everybody, except for you. Temple of the False God. It's a staple land, so goes in pretty much everything. Mosswort Bridge. This land is super easy to get off because I play a land after getting Omnath. Two creatures out, and I can use it. Dryad Arbor. I run Green Sun Zenith in here, and that's 99% of the time what I use it for. Getting out that extra land. It's a forest, so I can use those mechanics like Wood Elves to search for a forest and put it into play. So that's kind of nice. And last but not least, Cavern of Souls. Of course, I'm going to be naming Elemental. I run a few elementals like Regal Force. I'm trying to think of any other elementals. I don't know. We'll get to them. But this is just one of those lands that I wanted to go all out for Omnath, and just so I can make sure Omnath resolves from playing any blue decks, Cavern of Souls lets it resolve. Alright, so we're going to get into the creatures. I have it assorted by converted mana cost. Now, I almost did it by like synergy things, because I have a lot of things that synergize with other things, but I wanted to go with converted mana cost instead. Sylvan Safekeeper. This basically acts like a Lightning Greaves with Omnath. If I don't have Lightning Greaves, it'll save him 1 or 2 times, and people normally don't gun for Omnath if they see this out, so I don't have to sack a lot of lands. Also, again, this themes with Titania. I'm able to sack lands for free and create a 5/3 elemental for free, so it does go very well with this deck. Sakura Tribe Elder. It's a stick that tutors for lands. Turn 2, that's great. I can block with it if I need to. Tutors me a land. Lotus Cobra. Lotus Cobra is a landfall creature that gives me mana just for putting a land into play. All those fetch lands, boom, boom. That's 2 free mana without even tapping anything. Lotus Cobra is super powerful in here. Ghave Dryad. This is basically just a creature that pulls a land from my deck into play. Also a forest, so I can search out for Cinderglade or Dryad Arbor, whatever I want. Wood Elves. Same thing, tutors up a land, a forest, so I can search out those double type lands. Farhaven Elf, 2 for a land. Ghave Elder. Now another point I want to point out with this deck is I have a lot of ways to get extra land drops per turn. And I don't want to have strictly cards that pull lands from my deck and put them into play, because then if I can play 3 or 4 extra lands a turn, which that does happen, it happens a lot, I won't have nothing in hand to play, so being able to play 3 extra lands a turn is useless. I'm not taking advantage of that. He helps smooth that out by putting those lands into my hand. I have a couple cards that pull lands from my deck into hand. We'll get to those. Eternal Witness, staple green guy, gets something back. Azusa, Lost But Seeking. Again, we're all about those landfall triggers. We want more lands that go into play faster. Boom, boom, boom. Every land is damaged. Lands are damaged. Lands are what win you the game. They're what kill people. Every land is a 5/5 elemental. Azusa lets you play 2 more per turn. When it gets going crazy, I'm able to hammer out a lot of cards and just do a lot of crazy stuff. Yeah, I can go bonkers really fast out of nowhere, and Azusa helps enable that. Oracle Moldiah, same thing. About 90% of the time, if I get Oracle Moldiah early on, like turn 3 or 4, I'm going to win the game. I'm just straight going to win the game. I'm going to play more lands per turn. I'm going to top deck more lands. I'm going to just win the game. Like I said, with having those lands in hand and playing extra lands per turn, Oracle lets me keep the lands in hand by pulling the ones from the top of my deck instead of playing the ones from my hand. So, she is extra good. Solemn, again, pulls a land from my deck, and if it dies, I draw a card. Ogre Battle Driver. This is a haste mechanic for this deck. That's its primary function. But the +2/+0 is also very relevant. I have a couple other means to stack that for added benefit. So I'm going to set this card to the side, and I will point that out to you when we get to it, the ways to stack and mitigate that +2 to extra added benefit. Stone Cedar Hierophant. This was that means to get these 2 cards kind of interacting, so where I can tutor up for, those 4 extra lands a turn with Thawing Glaciers. Land comes into play, I untap a card, or untap a land. Reactivate it. Land comes into play, boom, untap a land. Tap it again. Land comes into play, boom, untap a land. I did that 4 times in a turn. It's amazing. Garruk's Pack Leader. I love this card. Now, I didn't go with the enchantment version because I wanted a creature. I wanted a beater, and he gets in there for damage all the time. Basically, whenever I play a land, I draw a card. Trigger, trigger, trigger. Urabrask the Hidden. Gives my stuff haste and it slows people down. Giving my stuff haste is a big deal, so he does work. Kiki-Jiki. Kiki-Jiki is just a fun creature that I wanted to put in here. I really don't use him all that often, but the few times that I have used him, it's to copy a Regal Force and draw like 8 to 10 cards, or copy an Avengers Zendikar and put out like 15 tokens. I mean, it does serious work if I play it. Acidic Slime, a little bit of removal on a stick. Pretty standard. Titania, Protector of Argoth, that's what she is. She goes with all those fetch lands. I mean, I play the fetch lands early on, that means I don't get the double trigger with Omnath. But if I play her, she puts it back into play. Boom, I get to reactivate it. Boom, free 3/3. They're 5/3. And it's an elemental. That's big. That means these will bolt with Omnath as well. She themes super powerfully. She's almost just as bad as Omnath himself. Rampaging Baloths. This thing is almost as bad as Avengers Zendikar in this deck because it puts out big creatures for every time I play a land, and I'm playing a lot of lands. Greed Warden of Marasa. Another new card from the Battle for Zendikar sets. It's an elemental. It's just like a double. It's literally two Eternal Witnesses in one, but an elemental. So when it dies, I bolt somebody. Freaking amazing. Stalking Vengeance. Stalking Vengeance actually themes with this deck because my stuff's going to be dying. People are going to be board wiping. They're taking a ton of damage. Instead of taking just 3 damage from the elemental dying with Omnath, they're taking 8 per creature if it's a 5/5 elemental. So this thing will also wreck people. I run for some sack outlets. I run Ashnod's Altar. Sack a creature, add 2 to my mana pool, boom, deal the damage. I also run Greater Good. Greater Good is so powerful. That's another card. If I get that, I'm going to win the game shortly after. Boom. Sack a 5/5, draw 5, discard 3, hammer him for 5. Pretty much wrecks people's face. Regal Force. Elemental draws me a metric poop load of cards. Corrosive Tusker. Now, this may seem like a weird, really weak card for this deck. I never cast it. Never. I always cycle it. I cycle it, and this actually was a weird addition to this deck because of the cycling. It allows me to draw a card early on, 3 mana, but it also gets me a land in hand. And like I said, those lands in hand do make a huge difference for how smoothly this deck plays out. So, surprisingly enough, he was an excellent, really techie choice for me. And he has paid off. I mean, I can't complain with him. Avengers Zendikar. It's an elemental that poops out a ton of things. I mean, it's pretty standard stock. Everybody's seen Avengers Zendikar. But he has extra work with Omnath in play. Borborgmos Enraged. Honestly, I've played a ton of games with Omnath, and I have yet to even need him into play. I mean, it'd be just complete overkill if I had Borborgmos in play. Every time he deals damage to somebody, combat damage, which he's going to, he's a 7/6 with trample, for Christ's sake. He's going to hit. But I'm going to get some lands because I run 40. I'm going to get a land, and I'm going to bolt somebody. Or I can play the land and put a 5/5 out. So either way, I'm putting damage out just by dealing combat damage. Just by playing Magic, I'm getting a benefit. Craterhoof Behemoth. It's plain and simple. It's going to end the game. Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. He's the only Eldrazi. He's the biggest guy in this deck. Now, the biggest thing for him, why I put him in there versus the other Ulamog, is the shuffle. That's the only thing. The spot removal's good. That was a winning factor. And I know the new Ulamog, ooh, he exiles 2 things, and then every time he attacks, you exile 20. That's great and all. But a lot of times, I'm just rifling maniacally through my deck for cards. So that shuffle effect is super powerful for me. It's a lifesaver. I could really build myself out if I don't have that failsafe. So he does major work. Now, we're going to get into our non-creature cards, starting with our ramp. Now, first and foremost, I do not run Sol Ring. I know I may catch a lot of criticism for it, but I don't run it, and I never needed to run it. Sol Ring, with a theme in my deck to making sure I'm just throwing lands into play like a madman, getting those landfall triggers, Sol Ring doesn't do anything for that. I would rather have a land, because if I played a land, I get an elemental. That's a potential 8 damage. I play Sol Ring, yeah, I'm a little speeded up, but it's not conducive to my Omnath plan. So I skipped it. I in fact don't run any mana rocks. I run all fetching things. I mean, you run green, you don't need mana rocks, really, because you can have fetching things for your lands. Kodama's Reach and Cultivate, the other cousin of Kodama's Reach. Get me lands, get them in the hand. Perfect. Harrow. you sack a land, which it also triggers with Titania. To get that 5/3 elemental, get 2 landfall triggers. And they come into play untapped, so that's also good. Sprouting Vines. This is huge. Play this at the end of somebody's turn, and I will get 4 lands, 3 lands easy. Every time I get at least 3 lands, if not 4. That's how I usually get 4, because I'm pretty choosy about when I play it. So if I get Azusa, I play that shortly after. Boom, boom, boom. I'm rocking and rolling with all those land drops. Plus, I was around when Scourge was a set. It was a fun set, so a little bit of a throwback. Ranger's Path searches for 2 lands, puts them into play. Explosive Vegetation searches for 2 lands, puts them into play. Now we're getting into our extra land per turn cards. Exploration. This is another thing. If I get that, I'm gonna win the game. I'm gonna get there. Burgeoning. I will keep a 5 land hand if I have Burgeoning, because I will win the game. Everybody else starts it. 1 land turn 1. When it gets to my second turn, I got like 5 or 6 lands out. Yeah, I'll take that. Exploration. Super perfect. It's just a perfect card. Playing on turn 2, I don't usually have much to do on turn 2. Play an additional land and draw a card. It's perfect. Now we're getting into our removal. I got a couple, just like 3 removal cards itself. So I don't really have a lot in that aspect. I often don't need it. All is Dust. It's perfect board wipe. I mean, each player sacks all colored permanents. I mean, I can't really ask for more. Unless I wanted to Oblivion Stone. Then I guess I can ask for more and just destroy everything. And then Beast Within. A little bit of spot removal. I am very extremely choosy with these cards. I save this card unless I really, really, really need it. I mean, I only run a couple. I have to be very, very careful with when I use those. Now we're getting into our draw package. We got Sylvan Library. Sylvan Library is a powerhouse in green, period. If you don't run it in green, I mean, it's green draw power. It's expensive for a reason. It also combos very well with Abundance. It's a Spanish abundance. Abundancia. Abundance says, whenever you would draw a card, instead you choose land or non-land. Then you reveal from the top of your library until you hit the revealed card, a land or a non-land. You put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. So with these 2 out, every upkeep you're naming land or non-land 3 times, and then putting those into your hand, and the rest on the bottom in any order. Instead of the Sylvan Library paying 4 life to draw an extra card. It's amazing. Like, you will just shit cards if you get these 2 out together. You have to be careful though, because Abundance by itself can really slow you down. If you have a way to draw extra cards, it's amazing. If you don't, and you're only drawing 1 card a turn, don't try to hold off on Abundance unless you extremely, extremely need it, because it'll slow you down. Cream of the Crop. Cream of the Crop is another one of those cards that Ogre Battle Driver themes with. You can stack the triggers because they both trigger at the same time. If I play Omnath, play a land, so I get a 5/5 elemental. I trigger Ogre Battle Driver first, so the 5/5 will get +2/own haste. Then I trigger Cream of the Crop. Now the 5/5 is a 7/5, and I'll get to dig 7 cards instead of 5. Put 1 on top and the rest on the bottom in any order. This card allows me to dig for what I want when I want. When I start dropping lands, I basically just dig through my deck for what card I want, whenever I want. So, Cream of the Crop is pretty super powerful. And it's really an inexpensive card. It's like a 50-cent rare. Horn of Greed. I've been looking for this little dirt bag for, I don't know, a month. And I have searched everywhere for it. I have searched and searched and searched. Could not find it to save my life. And then out of nowhere, some guy that always comes to the shop was like, oh yeah, I have one of those. I was like, well, what the fuck? Trade it to me. So I finally got that. Don't have to proxy it anymore. Whenever a player plays land, that player may draw a card. Well, that player draws a card. Everybody thinks, well, that's kind of group huggy. Yeah, you're right, but it's more for me when I can play 3 or 4 lands a turn, or well, I guess it doesn't work for burgeoning, but whenever you play a land from your hand. So I get a Azusa out, that's 3 cards drawn extra for turn, just by playing a land. So it benefits me more. Harmonize. Draw 3 cards, straight and simple. It's nice to get you going. Greater Good. There's that powerhouse I said. I play a land, I get an elemental, sack it to Greater Good. Draw 5, discard 3, bolt somebody for 3 damage with the Omnath trigger. Perfect. I mean, what more do you want? You deal damage and draw cards. Memory Jar. Memory Jar is an old favorite of mine. Basically, when I need to reload my hand after just rifling through my deck and pooping out things with Omnath and so many lands, Memory Jar just reloads my hand for round 2. It also makes everybody else basically just dump 7 cards in their graveyard. Green Sun Zenith. It's a tutor for green, reusable. I usually use it for like 2 different things. If I have it in my opening hand, I'll use it for Dryad Arbor. If I have it, mid-game, I'll get Oracle Moldiah. That's usually what I get. Defense of the Heart. Super powerful card for green. Being able to simply just pull 2 creatures from your deck, put them into play, around turn 3 or 4, is amazingly powerful. Especially when it's almost like you're punishing your opponents for playing creatures, because once they have 3, boom, it's done. All it has to do is survive. And usually it does. That'll basically win me the game by like turn 5 or 6. Because if I need to draw cards late game, I'll pull Avengers Zendikar and Regal Force. Boom. Trigger Avengers Zendikar first, get a shit ton of plant tokens, trigger Regal Force, draw a bunch of cards, draw like 10 cards. If it's super early in the game, I'll be a douche and I'll get Ulamog, and I'll get Urabrask, the hidden. So that way Ulamog comes out, swings, Annihilator 4, and whenever my opponents play a creature, it comes into play tapped. So I'll just wreck it right there and then if I can. If not, I'll get Avengers Zendikar and Regal Force. Genesis Wave. I easily and routinely hit this for over 10. Just almost on curve too. Like I ramp out so hard and so fast, I can easily hit that by like turn 7. Easily. Tempt with Vengeance. This is a fun card because it's got that tempting offer where it's kind of interactive with opponents. What they get, you get. So if X is 4, I get 4 tokens. Then each of my opponents, if it's a 4-man pod, they get 4 tokens. I get another 12 tokens, 4 for each of them. They're also elementals. That is a big deal because each one of these may only be a 1/1, but each one of these is also a lightning bolt. So think about that. Lightning Greaves. I run this, not Swiftfoot Boots. For my curve, Lightning or Swiftfoot Boots was often very clunky for me. So I switched out for Lightning Greaves. That 1 mana to equip was surprisingly a big deal. I didn't want Omnath to sit out there unprotected for a turn, and that caught me every time. For untapping my lands, we're kind of getting into the jank cards. Sword of Feast and Famine is the only sword I run, basically because it untaps my lands. If I can get this going, it's going to be game over super fast. Hammer of Perforos, it gives all my stuff haste, and it sacks lands for extra creatures. So it goes with Titania. Gives those 5/3s haste. Ashnod's Altar, that's one of my proxies. It's in another deck, so I do have an Ashnod's Altar. That's super funny. I totally forgot to take it out, and I feel like a dummy. So let me find it real quick. It's an artifact that says whenever you can pay 3 mana to cast it. Search the library for an artifact. I'm thinking of something else. I'm thinking. I don't know what I'm thinking. But anyways, that's embarrassing. So let me find it real quick just so I can prove to the world that I have an Ashnod's Altar. It's just in another deck. My bad, everybody. Don't hose me. Don't hose me, bro. Ashnod's Altar, 3 mana, sack a creature to add 2 to your mana pool. It's a sack outlet. So that's my fancy dancy proxy. Ashnod's Altar. I do have it. That is so funny, I can't believe I forgot. Garruk Primal Hunter. Basically, I use this to draw cards. It's 5 mana, draw 5 cards usually. I take it. Warstorm Surge. This thing will just shit out damage when I get Omnath going. Every time I play a land, that's 5 direct damage, and I'm playing a lot of lands. That's a lot of direct damage. I can often just kill people with Warstorm Surge without attacking. So, I just thin the flock out with that and then attack whoever's still standing. Akroma's Memorial. I get that, I win the game. People can't deal with all those flying beat sticks that Omnath makes. Now we're getting into some of our recursion stuff. We got Crucible Worlds. Does super work in this deck. Just super amounts of work. Being able to play those fetch lands from my graveyard, that's twice the Omnath triggers, especially when I got like Azusa online. Giving me 3 land drops a turn. 3 fetch lands means 6 landfall triggers. That's 6 tokens for 3 lands. That's huge. Life from the Loam. Can't have Crucible without Life from the Loam. Gets my lands back. And the Dredge 3 is also kind of a jump starter too early game. If I have nothing going on, I'll throw Life from the Loam in the graveyard, get 0 lands, start dredging, boom, I got stuff going. I got gas, I got a spark, I got fire. So, that is the Omnath, the Rage Locus, the beast from Battle for Zendikar. I was so happy that he came out. I thought to myself, this is the one card from this set I want more than anything else. So I went out and got it. I had to have it. And I have not regretted it. He's super fun, and all my friends just kind of groan whenever I pull him out. I mean, he's a powerful general. I mean, he does serious work. There's only been a few games where I've lost because he just didn't do anything. So in those cases, what happened was I, for some reason, didn't get any of my green mana sources. None. How that happens, I don't know. I didn't get any green mana sources. I didn't get any ways to fetch lands. When I did get my green sources, it's like I run like 20 cards in here to fetch lands. I didn't get a single one. So it was a very weird outlying circumstance. So this deck is super consistent otherwise, and I've been thoroughly pleased with it. So if you're a fan of playing lands and dealing damage and making tokens and wrecking people's dreams, give Omnath a try. He's pretty baller. So thank you for watching, and subscribe if you want. Give me some feedback. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you want to see, and we'll try to get her going. So until then, peace.